Good morning. I'm your friend Scotty Ray. Welcome to Scotty Ray's Morning Weather. It is Good Friday. I hope your morning is treating you well as we get ready for this weekend. The few folks that are working do usually get this day off, so welcome in. If you're off today and viewing for the first time, we'll tell you a little bit about news and a little bit of weather and what to expect this weekend when it comes to the rougher weather that'll roll in on Sunday morning on Easter here. Scotty Ray's Morning Weather. Our coverage being brought to you by Rick Justice Automotive and the good folks at Hooper's on 22nd Avenue. If you don't have one of those radios that go off, the NOAA weather radios, they'll help you out. One of the few places in Meridian that have those. You can place an order and they'll bring it out to your car. As we start talking weather this morning, there is a 20% chance of showers before 8 a.m., and then it'll become mostly cloudy. Our high today, only 66. That's a drastic change in between the 80 and 90 degree weather we've had. It'll be gusty with gusts of about 25 miles an hour. We roll into tonight and cooler weather, 42 for that low. We had 60s most of last week. Sometimes it was right at 70 overnight. But we're going to hit that 42-degree night tonight. As we look at tomorrow, we'll get a mostly sunny sky, 76 before all this rain moves in, with a 90% chance for tomorrow night. And then we've got that chance of showers and thunderstorms on Sunday as it rolls in. We'll get deeper into that in just a moment. As we go over the radar, we take a look at what's going on. Some showers down on the Gulf Coast around Gulfport in the state of Mississippi. As we move to our due east over around Atlanta, that area, they've got a burn ban in effect. That's a burn ban advisory out for most of the state of Georgia. As we move up around Murfreesboro, Tennessee, here out to the east of Nashville, they have a freeze watch. Cookeville, Tennessee area, all in there. As we go due north of there, we get up in Louisville, Kentucky, Evansville, Indiana. They've got a frost advisory. And you look at all this blue here, Lexington, Kentucky, Cincinnati, Ohio, a freeze warning into effect for tonight. So the old saying of it thunders in February, it's going to frost in April, I guess has come true for these areas. And you look at us tonight into the 40s to where we've been having those 70-degree weather days. So it has changed drastically. So that's sort of what's going on nationwide this morning as it gets a little bit chillier for everybody. Well, as we said, today is Good Friday. Remember what Good Friday is all about, and we'll talk a little bit more into that as well in just a moment. But there's a reason for all of this, and that is the reason right there on the screen. As we roll in toward Sunday, this is when the bad weather is expected, usually most likely, and all of this can change in between now and Sunday. It'll be Sunday afternoon into Sunday night when in the Meridian area, west central Alabama, and all of that in this area here will be getting this weather. As we go to the radar map here of what the National Weather Service is showing us, that line cuts across north of Vicksburg, right around Philadelphia, through DeKalb and Scuba, and the line south being the worst of the weather. North still getting some there, but from here down to the coast, looks like it'll be the worst of this, which could be some tornadoes and activity. So we'll watch this. Again, we're still a little ways out from this. Later today, tomorrow will be more defined exactly of what will happen. I'll be here for you should that happen, and we'll track those storms as they start rolling in. Again, be prepared for this. I did a video on this yesterday and put out. It's the last one that's on my page where you can go back and look at being prepared for what's coming. Having football helmets, some type of helmet if you have to go to a safe place. When a tornado hits, it'll throw you around. It only makes sense to have one of those. But it goes into more detail of what to expect, and you can go back and look at that. Well, as we start looking at news nationwide, a Texas pastor, he made the comment, and, Brother Danny does this. I've seen several churches where they're preaching to an empty church. So he took pictures of his members and taped them to the chairs there so he wouldn't be talking to himself. Pretty good idea. That's out in Texas. Do you remember this story of the lady that accidentally sent a text to her? She sent a text to her grandson and sent it to the wrong person. Well, he responded, and she invited him over to Thanksgiving dinner anyway. And for the last 4 years, him and his girlfriend, I think she comes along with him, comes to their house. Well, her husband has passed away from the coronavirus. Sad story on that. I think he was in his upper 50s, but that's something else. They've got a friendship, but sorry for her passing and losing someone to the coronavirus. As we look at New York, I think their death toll now is 4,260. 4,260 souls have passed away from the coronavirus. Very serious. They're starting to use Hart Island to bury these bodies. They're placing them in coffins, and they could remove those later for a different funeral later if it's temporary, to where the families would want to move them. But that's what they're doing right now. It's a lot of people, more still to come there. As we look at, they were telling us a couple weeks ago that to expect around 240,000 people to die from this. They've drastically reduced that number now to as a whole of 60,000. That's still a lot of people, but not 240. So they have backed off on that. The data apparently was wrong that they were using, and I guess this is thrown at a lot of people for the first time, and they're trying to figure out all of this. Is why some of the information that comes out is not always correct, but they're working on it. Now they're saying that death toll for the United States would reach 60,000. Prime Minister Boris is out of ICU. He's not out of the hospital yet, but he is doing better. So that's good news, as prayers still continue for the Prime Minister there. As you look at this, Arnold Schwarzenegger on the right here on the screen there, that's his son on the left, Joseph. They do look a lot alike. That's floating around the internet nowadays. Also, I've heard this before, and I'd never really looked at his picture before. But Clint Eastwood, that's his son on the left there, Scott Eastwood. They do look a lot alike. It's we used to do, what was it, the mother-daughter look-alike contest. There's a lot of folks that look like their mama. Never thought about the dad thing. Well, this happened, and a French jet went up. A guy got to go fly with them I guess is just to do it like media does. They'll get to fly in the jets with the Blue Angels type thing. And he accidentally ejected himself from that. Wow. I remember the day that I was offered that opportunity, and twice I turned that down. And if you'll notice on the screen, there's Debbie getting in with the Blue Angels instead of I. Me and Alan kind of stood back, let her do her thing. But congratulations, Debbie. You did that twice for me. I would never do that. I just couldn't. But Debbie enjoyed it. She even went up in the stunt plane. And I want to say she told me the stunt plane was worse than flying with the Blue Angels. But congrats, girl. I'm glad you did it and I didn't. As we move into Good Friday, what really happened there? 30 pieces of silver turned Jesus over. And you think about this. You've worked with people that pretty much the same basic thing. Well, how could you turn Jesus in for 30 pieces of silver? There's people that you work with that you've watched. You've seen people do things to get promotions, to cut somebody out. It's the same thing as doing this for 30 pieces of silver. Maybe you know that person. Maybe you are the person that has done that. Well, even though you've done these things, he did die on that cross, and he chose those nails for you and me. No matter what you've done, he will forgive, and you can get into the gates of heaven. And that's what Good Friday is. And you look at Good Friday of the pain and the misery that this man went through for us. He was nailed to a cross. He was beaten. He did all of that for you. And that's how it becomes Good Friday, because you can be saved because of him. And I urge you to do that. Of course, there's going to be a church service somewhere Sunday that you can watch online. And so all of this is done especially for you. That's my thoughts this morning. I'd like to thank you for spending part of your day with me. We'll keep you track and up to date with the weather as it comes in on Sunday, and we'll be telling you more about the weather as it progresses here at Scotty Ray's Morning Weather. Again, thank you for spending part of your day with me.